what are the foundational elements
Right.
of XLA versus just looking at SLA differently?
So again, so it starts with the defined experience. This is
Hmm.
what we want people to do. This is what we want them to appreciate this. We want them to feel this way, and we want to get to this output because we're not doing XLAs to make people feel better. I mean, that doesn't sound very nice. And I've said before, I don't as an XLA person, I don't really care about Sarah, but I care about everybody like Sarah. And I
Hmm.
care about creating something that the Sarahs of the world are going to appreciate.
Hmm.
Because I can't know every Sarah. I can't
Hmm.
know every individual. I can't know if Sarah's having a good or a bad day. But in the law of the big numbers, I'm going to get it right or I'm going to get it wrong. Now,
Hmm.
when I've established that, then I have to figure out where are the sentiment points? And we
Hmm.
look at things, we've got concepts like experience anticipation. And we know that if there is experience anxiety at any point in the process, it has to be addressed.
Hmm.
Because people will either stop, they'll just pause and freeze, or they'll disengage.
Hmm.
So when we look at that defined experience, we look at all the experience anticipation, we look at all of the critical moments, and we know we need to be measuring sentiment in those critical moments.
Hmm.
We also need to know how that changes over time. Because the other big concept in experience management, which doesn't exist in service management, is the concept that experiences are defined over time. They're
Hmm.
not defined by an interaction. In
Hmm.
service management, we're very focused on the interaction.
Hmm.
Would you hire this agent? Did we solve your problem? Would you recommend me to people you don't know? Whereas in experience management, we're looking at how this changes over time. Do we
Hmm.
see that we're successful in reducing the experience anxiety? Do we see that we're encouraging people to complete the journey? And when people complete the journey, do they think they've created a successful memory, a
Hmm.
meaningful memory, a transformational memory that they want to talk to others about? Now, once we've done that, then we actually do get hardcore technical, right? So then we start to look at all the operational data that supports that. So, how long did they wait in the queue? Did they have a successful or an unsuccessful ride? Was the temperature outside of the boundaries of what we normally expect? What are
Hmm.
the operational indicators of success and were they all met?
Hmm.
And then we have the technical measurements, right? We have the technical measurements about response times and things like that, and application completion times and things like that. And then we put them all together in what we call an experience reference matrix, and we say, okay, so with this sentiment, then all of these things line up great. Now, obviously, if people are happy and they feel that everything they've done is a fabulous, memorable occasion that was worth the money, then we don't care about
Hmm.
anything. So we don't have to measure everything all the time. But the moment that we see one of two things, either there is an incident, let's use ITIL terminology, we need to understand what that root cause
Hmm.
was. But what's also very important in experience management, one last concept, is the gravity to average. Because services don't change. The average SLA lasts 21 years unchanged. Experiences change a lot because humans are self-programming sensors and they adjust their expectations. And as they adjust their expectations, they adjust their perception of the result.
Hmm.
And so we are always on the lookout for everything is perfect, but people are not enjoying this as much as they were.
Hmm.
So we need to reinvigorate this experience, or this experience no longer works
Hmm.
because something else has changed. And that could be competition, that could be some government related thing, that could be that everybody's become vegan and they're not eating meat anymore. They can look at all of those. It doesn't really matter what it is, but we're on an expedition now to understand the gravity to average of what's happened with our experience.
Hmm. So, I mean, in the context of this being done externally, I mean, you really have to understand your customers. Like, you have to understand what it is they value, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. Um,
absolutely.
the other thing, though, that I think is really interesting, and you've brought up Disney a couple times. Coincidentally, one of the most recent podcasts that I did with Alcon, um, they it was all about how they underwent a big business transformation to center their business more around service, right? And they consulted with Disney. And they did that because they realized they needed to better understand their customers, et cetera. And the notable thing was the first thing Disney said is this starts with your employees, which is such an important point in all of this. And it also made me think, like, if a company can't embrace this concept well and apply it internally, like the likelihood of them being able to do it well externally is probably relatively small. Correct?
We have a lot of evidence that EX equals CX equals outcome. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's no doubt about that. Where it gets tricky, where it gets tricky for me anyway, is that I do believe in working with the assets that you've got, right? And so I believe in management is improvised theater a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, and when you walk into an organization, I think you want to try and do the best with the people that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Problem I have with employee experience is that very quickly, if you don't have the right executives or you don't have the right control over their thinking, you get a fire and hire thing. Oh, we've got the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every CEO believes they have the wrong people. Every CEO is not worried about their economics, despite what everybody thinks. They're worried about, do I have the right people for the mission? And I think especially in the United States, where we have much more of a fire and hire culture, we then, because that, and that's our way out, we don't actually do the best with the people that we've got. So I agree with you, and this is why I'm being sort of as nuanced as possible. I agree with you. It starts with EX. If you've got the right people and they believe in the mission and they've been empowered and they feel that they've got the right technology supporting them, they feel they've got the right management, they feel they've got the right facilities, then you are going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just very wary that that doesn't become that lazy management doesn't say I've got the wrong people
Mm-hmm. Right.
for this mission.
Yeah, because, it is usually, I think, from what I see, where where this most commonly falls down is the word you just said, which is empowerment. They may have really good people and they might even have great technology, but they don't treat the people in a way that makes them feel part of the mission, which prevents them from buying in the way that they want them to, but aren't executing leadership in
Absolutely.
the manner to get them there, right? To me, that's like one of the most fundamental shifts taking place in business right now is that the way leaders need to lead has changed tremendously. And there's,
Right.
a big portion still catching up to that reality. Many aren't fit for the job, right?
So
Some
that's
are coming around and others are it's going to be a wait until they're gone and get somebody better in place that gets it, that
right.
gets that correlation. Because if
Right.
they don't believe it, then to your point, it's very easy to blame it all on the people. But really the problem is them in essence.
So there's two things here I'd like to. I mean, I think you're onto something, right? So there's two
Mhm.
things that I think either support or hopeful support your argument. One is I think the first major challenge that we have in Western civilization is the moment that our personnel department became human resources, because just calling people human resources opens up the door. Up until the 1980s, we never had mass layoffs in the United States. But with the emergence of shareholder value and the concept of human resources, people were then seen to be part of the profit equation
Assets.
as assets. And I think that's where the problem starts. I think the second problem you've identified extremely well, and that is we have a lot of people who made their careers at the top in my generation, my age, people who refuse to retire or die, who made their mark as service in the service management economy, in the service economy. And so they're used to when they confronted with an issue, they're looking at services and they're looking at optimization of processes. They're looking at productivity as efficiency,
Hmm.
which is a different thing. And because human resources are anonymized, it all becomes like a resource game. And this
Mhm.
is the reason why people like Southwest Airlines are being incredibly badly led by an incompetent CEO.
Mhm.
Not because he was always incompetent, he's just incompetent in running an experience economy
Right, he's
flagship.
not fit for the job anymore.
Not fit for
And
that
that's
job.
the thing is, there's so many elements of that. If you just think
But
about, it's the command and control type.
exactly.
I'm the leader, so I need to know the answers.
Right.
I shouldn't have to ask. I shouldn't have to embrace the intelligence of my entire workforce because I'm supposed to be the smartest. There's an ego layer to it. And then, there's just a reality that with the progression of technology and AI and skills, it's just not possible. If you're not very adept at orchestrating talented people to work well together toward a common goal, then you're not a good leader. You could be the smartest person, it doesn't matter.
Well,
If
I
they
think
don't like you and they won't work toward a
But I think,
vision,
yeah, but to be honest, I don't think we don't have to make it personal. I just made it personal, but I don't think you should make it personal because I think these people have been very successful in a certain environment. So
Mhm.
basically, what they're doing is they're deploying a perfect style for a situation that no longer exists.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So there's friction between what they're good at and what's needed right now. And how realistic is it that those people are going to change this late in their careers? They're probably going to get fired. But here's where I'm excited, right? If I look at experience management, bring it back to the topic, it's being led by a whole generation of enlightened leaders.
Hmm.
We're going to be talking about this at our event next week. We did 3 years ago, we did research with a company called Unstructured, and you should get Tanya Bernarda on this. She's like the queen of social media forensics.
Okay.
So we said to her, why is it that, which people are now adopting experience management and which people are successful? And can we extrapolate that? My original goal was very selfish. Can I extrapolate that to identify people I don't know who I should be talking to?
Hmm.
So she went out there and she said, this is interesting. Most of the most of the audience that we should be talking to in the enlightened leadership are actually female. It's an interesting thing. I don't want to make it doesn't mean there's no males doing it, but females are dominating it and they're going through the layers faster than their male colleagues. And so we started to look at this and I started talking about this at an event last year, and I had people coming up to me and saying, "Well, I don't have a great manager, so I'm never going to be able to do this, or we our culture is not right for this. I want to do it." So I came up with this analogy, and I don't know if I've spoken to you about it before, which is it's an American football analogy, which is obviously uncomfortable anytime an English person goes down that route. But if you consider the established management, the management that you are obviously not enthusiastic about, if you consider them to be the defensive line, and you stand there and you look at the defensive line, it looks awesome. It's big, it's heavy, and it's out to stop you.
Hmm.
It's their goal. They don't want to disturb a good thing. They know how to run an organization. If everybody does what they're told, they're going to make their bonus and we're all going to be fine. Now, you have an offensive line, and the offensive line is your enlightened manager
Hmm.
because the enlightened manager is going to push and they're going to create a hole. And you, as the aspiring new generation of experience management, are the running back.
Hmm.
And you don't have to worry about how big that offensive line is. If you have an enlightened manager that can make the hole, your only task is to run through that hole as fast as you can. Because the thing about the defensive line is they're big and they're scary, but they're as agile as a block of concrete. So
Hmm.
they can't turn, they can never catch you. So you've got to find somebody who's going to create the hole for you. You don't need everybody to do it, just one person,
Yeah.
and you run through that hole and you take it to the touchdown.
Yeah.
And I feel that we should be helping this generation. Don't worry about changing the defensive line. That's not
Yeah.
going to. Just find the whole. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole can be a domain, the whole can be an audience, like its employees, its patients, its students, and you run. And we've got
Mm-hmm.
enough case studies now that show that. And the enlightened leader is more likely to be a woman. She
Mm-hmm.
is more likely to come to that role, what's the word, horizontally.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not be, it could be a CIO who didn't do technology, but came to the role through marketing or legal or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for somebody like that. And you're going to look for some, and it could be a male. I'm not saying don't be a male, but I'm seeing a lot of females in our global founding members that are leading the charge.
Yeah, which is
And then you
exciting.
need to empower people.
Mm-hmm.
They need to feel that they can run through that hole, that they can evade the defensive line, and then they can make it to the touchdown.
Yeah,
That's what you
it's
do.
a great analogy. And I think, I think my frustration only comes from wanting better for those people. Like I know that sounds so silly, but
No,
it's
no,
like I want them to be able to modernize themselves a bit. And it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, I absolutely agree with your analogy and it's a great one. And that is where the focus should be, right? So I
don't
love
spend too
that.
much time on the defensive line, right?
Yeah.
Because that's their job. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
They will have chinks. They will have things, and that holes will emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think otherwise we spend too much time getting depressed about how
Yeah.
impossible the task is. And the task is not impossible. I'm old now, but I've done some amazing things by having a few people on my side and good
Mm-hmm.
references. And and
Yeah.
and and if I was focused just on everything that's going to stop me, I'd never achieve anything.
Absolutely. I want to go back to one point you made because I really, really I think it's worth talking about for a couple minutes, which is how would you describe the difference between productivity and efficiency?
Well, it's very simple. Efficiency is doing more, productivity is doing more with the same, and efficiency is doing the same with less. And
Okay.
I think there's a big difference, right? So what we want is productivity.
Mm-hmm.
But what a service management executive does, or a service economy executive does, is efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to fire 10. I mean, even the other day, who was firing 10,000 people the other day, even though they didn't have a problem? I'm like, well, that makes no sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you can improve productivity, you don't need to fire people.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the mentality of management. When we had good quality management, it's kind of weird. Up to the 1980s, um, we weren't firing people.
Mm-hmm.
Mass layoffs in the United States outside of economic crises never occurred. When I started working for Hewlett Packard, nobody got fired. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
got fired up until the 90s in Hewlett Packard. And then they were laying off and laying off and laying off and shrinking and shrinking. And you cannot shrink your way to greatness. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody in your organization isn't just a resource. They also carry the culture and the intent of the organization. The
Mm-hmm.
longer they've been there, the more they do that. Now, we can get into issues with that because if you're and I had this with the bank to some degree. The crisis of 2008 showed us that not everybody was resilient enough to move to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And the company had protected people a lot from the external realities. So as much as you want to empower people, you've also got to expose people because I feel that people, when they understand what they're up against,
Mm-hmm.
most people can change themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't tell them and you don't show them and you don't empower them, empowerment's not enough if people aren't aware of the situation that we are in, and not they are in, but we are in,
Mm-hmm.
then they're not likely to change because they're going to be suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
They've been changed a lot
Right.
without any benefit to them. So I think this is a balance of educating, opening up, making sure that people are part of the ecosystem that they serve.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some great examples where people follow their product and they understand how people are using it and they come to new insights and they come back and they're willing to change.
Mm-hmm.
People are not opposed to change, but it has to be beneficial and they have to be certain that they can still put their kids through college or plan for their retirement. As anytime there are three things you can disturb to make sure your change fails. One is obviously job security. The second is disturbance of the personal skill set. Now, that's also an issue with experience management. We want you to do things you haven't done before, and some of the things that you've done before are less important than they were before. But the other one that you hurt is if you disturb their personal network, because everybody knows the organization doesn't get things done. It's who you know and how you know how to work that relationship. So if you disturb those three things, the personal skill set, the personal network, and the personal job security, you will not get change.
Mm-hmm.
However compelling and necessary that change is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so if we think about this context of productivity versus efficiency, if we keep that in mind,
Yeah.
you mentioned, we need to be cautious in the experience economy about what we can and what we cannot or should not optimize out.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, I think Starbucks is the greatest example, right? So Brian Niccol is the current CEO, and basically he became CEO because his predecessor optimized the hell out of Starbucks and killed it. He almost killed it, almost brought it to bankruptcy. And the founder Howard Schultz wanted to come back, and but even Howard Schultz didn't know how to fix it because Howard Schultz had built a culture, but he built an exceptional culture in an exceptional time. So it really needed something else. But basically, what Starbucks had done was play the service economy handbook. How can we be more efficient? How can we do more with less people? How can we automate everything? So why do we need to write the name on a cup? Why don't we do a sticker? A sticker is much easier, and we can follow stickers. Why do people really need comfortable chairs? They're not sitting there that long. We can put wooden chairs in there. That's cheaper. It's easier to clean. It's got all these aesthetics to it. Let's do that. And he did all these things, and the revenue dropped and dropped, and the loyalty dropped and dropped. And other companies seeing this said, hey, you know what? This is our chance. So lots of smaller coffee shops, not one, but lots of them
Mm-hmm.
eradicated Starbucks. Now, Brian Nichols come back, and I love Brian Nichols, and I love what he did at Chipotle. He gets a lot of stick because people are questioning the authenticity. Because once you've destroyed something and you recreate it, is it the thing that you?
Mm-hmm.
But I applaud him for trying.
Mm-hmm.
I applaud him for saying people should feel good. He hasn't backed away from diversity. People should feel good about this. People should feel free to write names on cups, and that got turned into well, Brian's making everybody write their names now, and that's not really authentic. But what he's trying to do is to empower people back in. And he's saying, and he's asked them, he said, so what's causing the problem? So
Mm-hmm.
instead of creating the efficiency, he's trying to create productivity by, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, by example, for reducing the number of things they're asked to sell,
Mm-hmm.
reducing the complexity of the things that they're asked to sell. So they've got more time to interact with people. So this is where I think, if you optimize to death on the service economy, you're going to kill it. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to kill it. You're going to kill the loyalty, and you know that retention is always the key figure for profitability.
Mm-hmm.
And people can dispute the academic facts about it, but you know that that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think anything that disturbs the experience of the customer should not be done.
Yeah. So then if we think about where we are with AI, okay,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I this is there's an my opinion is we're going to see a lot of companies take this way too far.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Over
of course.
optimize, over automate, and really just bottom
Right.
out, and crash because it's that short term mindset, right? So but I also, I'm not anti-AI by any means. I think there's incredible opportunities. I just think it comes back to the mindset of what are we aiming to do with it. So I'm curious, as you think about AI, like what are you positive and excited about, and what do you fear or feel cautious about?
Well, so I use AI a lot. right? So I think AI is amazing for research. It's amazing to keep me on track. Um, it can actually substitute for me in certain circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not against AI, and I'm not against AI improving productivity. But what you need to understand, and I think this is the problem with people like Bob Jordan at Southwest Airlines, he doesn't understand his audience. He understands his shareholders, and so he's doing things that make a lot of sense maybe for the shareholder, but only if the audience goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Once the audience defects, you have nothing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as I said, you can't shrink your way to greatness. So I think that what we need to do here is look at where AI can enhance the audience experience or deliver the audience experience in a more productive way.
Mm-hmm.
And what you see, I mean, there was a post the other day about LinkedIn about could you use AI to automate the CEO?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's quite easy because people like Bob Jordan at Southwest are easily automated because their thought processes are well understood. The models that they make decisions on are well understood. So any AI could do what Bob Jordan could do, or what the average McKinsey consultant can do. What AI can't do, and this is why I keep rooting for Brian Nichol, is they can't bring back creativity. They
Mm-hmm.
can't bring back at least not yet. They can't bring back the understanding and the creation of the experience because
Mm-hmm.
it requires humans that understand humans, care about humans, want humans to be successful in what they do, and they want to be a part of that success. That's not where AI is going to be strongest. So I think you are going to get the CEOs that have grown up in the service economy,
Mm-hmm.
the geeky, techie CEOs who have unbalanced personalities, they are going to go down this route of using AI ruthlessly, and they may crash, they may burn. But the enlightened executives are going to understand that AI can support the
Mm-hmm.
development of an experience economy. They can um, they can accelerate your ability to create and implement experiences. And that's who you want to work for, right? You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
work for somebody who doesn't like AI because that's probably not a good place to be. But you
Absolutely.
want to be who understands that the importance of human centricity in
Mm-hmm.
creating experiences, unless you're selling to robots, right? Then it doesn't matter maybe. And maybe there is a day that you are, that you're looking at the experience of the robots with each other. But if you're not in that business, humans are going to decide whether you survive or not, not the
Mm-hmm.
shareholder,
Mm-hmm.
not the shareholder, the audience.
And that's what I love about this focus, right? Is that it centers around this. You said when we spoke, it that a problem isn't my problem or your problem, it's our problem. It's centered around co-creation and
Right.
the people are at the center of that, right? And so it gives a good framing, but it forces if you're adopting this mindset and then you're bought into the idea of measuring that accordingly, it forces alignment of really the different stakeholders, right? So in the example of a company that needs to consider its investors and its customers, right? That's a reality. It's a problem if you're only considering one, I mean, and so you need to think about balancing, that and it's
But
really.
I would add something to that equation, right? So I was one of the early adopters of cloud, right? We were one of the first, when I was at Philips, we were one of the first customers for Amazon and Google and Azure. And people thought that the cloud was a noun and the cloud was going to give us cost savings. And I was telling people at the time, that's
It
not
seems like you're referring to a common misconception.
that the cloud is going to save us money and the cloud is going to optimize our business in some magical way. And I was telling people then, I've stuck to this, the cloud is about enabling you to create a business value proposition that will be created through an ecosystem of partners.
Mhm.
That's how you've got to see the cloud. Because in the service economy, we were optimizing companies. and we were optimizing supply chains, which is why you need an SAP or an Oracle or whatever. But that's not the situation you're in now, because a company is not a supply chain. A company is a series of value propositions delivered through ecosystems. Now, in order to be effective and efficient and to build those ecosystems quickly, the cloud is the only way to do that because you have to share data. And once you have to share data and you have to share data at volume and speed, then you need to have a cloud-based system in order to do it. So it's got nothing to do with productivity. Now,
Hmm.
that's the equation I'm seeing now with ecosystems. If you want to be successful in the experience economy, you are going to have to work in a series of ecosystems to create the right business value proposition. And that's everything from Adidas, working with some creator to create a special type of shoe. Why are they creating a special type of shoe? It's because of the ecosystem of the creator is being merged with them. And so you're going to see more and more of that in the experience economy as people try to come together and say, what can we do together that's really cool that's not been done before?
Hmm.
Right. And so so you need people who can build those,
Hmm.
who understand that, who are committed to that. And the audience doesn't even know that they need it always. This is
Hmm.
why you can't depend on the audience to tell you, but
Right.
you can delve into what the audience is missing on things that they're doing now. And that's basically where Bezos is great, because when I was in innovation, we were always defining innovation as something new that's not been done before. And Bezos came in and said, that's not what it is. Innovation is doing what people have always wanted for centuries, but giving it to them in different ways.
Hmm.
And so when I started thinking about that, you think, okay, so that's what we're trying to do here. And
Hmm.
companies that are optimizing their supply chain are completely missing the point because we don't care whether you have an optimized supply chain or not. And the interesting, I'm just going to mention Tesla for one reason, and not because I'm rejoicing in any way, shape, or form, but the collapse of Tesla is super interesting because it's the audience that are collapsing
Hmm.
Tesla. And there is nothing Tesla can do to make that car more efficient, to make that production line more attractive. Nothing is going to change until the audience perception changes.
Hmm.
And so the audience is incredibly powerful
Yeah.
in this model. So we need to bring, to come back to round it out, the employee experience has to match the audience experience.
Hmm.
And the employees have to be given access to understanding their role in achieving that audience experience.
Hmm.
And if we can get that, and we have all of the other capabilities of building ecosystems, building tool systems that support it, measuring it top down and a stack, then I think we're going to be fine. The companies that do that best are going to be the companies that are wildly successful.
Hmm. It's going to be really interesting to watch.
Well, I hope you're not just watching. I hope
Yeah.
you're in it, right? You've got to be
Yeah.
in it. You've got to be on
Taking
the field.
part. Yeah.
Yeah,
Looking for those holes to run through, right?
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't mean to bore you there, but
No, no.
I believe in this. I really do.
Yeah, I know it, and it shows, and I love that. It's contagious. So I we could keep talking, okay, but we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
I want to ask you two more things. One is, you've had a collection of really cool experiences in your career, and I
Yeah.
know this will be very hard to name just one, but what is one really important or really meaningful lesson you've learned that you carry with you?
So well, I'll give you one, which I have had a number of times, and I've been very, very fortunate, and I call it the Camelot experience, right? So the Camelot experience for me is one brief shining moment where you are in a team that everybody feels it, and everybody wants it, and everybody's on the same page, and everybody's sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning because we all want to make this thing happen. And the first time I got that was when I was building planes at what is now part of Airbus. And I had a Camelot moment, and sometimes it happens. You can't force it because I've tried, but when that happens, the Camelot moments are the moments that give you so much energy, and but it's addictive because you always want to, you're always looking for it again.
Yeah.
And I got it again at Pink Elephant when I was with all these 1,200 amazing young people also trying to change the world. That was another Camelot moment that I had, and another Camelot moment I had at the bank when we stopped worrying about saving money and we started to create the customer experience center.
Hmm.
And again, you just have a group of people, and it doesn't have to be a big group, but a group of people that really are aligned and want something. Those are the real transformational moments. Those are the moments I remember. I don't even
Hmm.
remember what we did sometimes, right? I don't remember what the products always were, but I remember that process and
Hmm.
that process. And I can use all these superlative words like when you trust each other, when you open up to each other, when you're all vulnerable for each other, which all sounds so very airy-fairy. But when you get that Camelot moment, it's the most amazing thing. The problem with Camelot moments is they don't last,
Hmm.
and that hurts,
Yeah.
right? It
And
could be
you,
because,
once
yeah,
you've been through it the first time, you know it doesn't last.
right, and you want
So
to.
yeah, but you have to be willing to enjoy it anyway and then let it go when the time is up
Well,
and
the first
hope
time you
that there's
don't know
another
it's going to
one.
end, right?
Yeah.
The first time you don't know it's going to end, and so when it does end, it's absolutely traumatic, and you
Hmm.
cry. I mean, we had a reunion for 20 years in succession from that Camelot team. And even today, if you ask people, they will say, "Oh my God, that was such an amazing thing."
Hmm.
And then you do realize it's going to end. I mean, how old was I? I was probably not even 30 at that time. So yeah. And then you do realize the next time you've got to, but the problem is the other people in it don't realize that.
Yeah.
There are always people who don't know this is going to end.
Hmm.
So you've also got a bit of a responsibility for the mental well-being of the people
Hmm.
that have committed everything to this, thinking this is going to be the greatest thing forever and ever and ever, and this
Yeah.
is what we're going to do, and we're all going to move in together. We're going to buy a house, and we're going to have a puppy, and it falls apart, and it can fall apart for 101 things: change of leadership, money
Yeah.
runs out, um, you know, the economy changes or whatever. But
Even
that's
you accomplish what you set out to accomplish, right? And then it's,
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, there's still a natural conclusion. Yeah. That's really cool. Well, I hope you get another one of those. I think that would
I'm
be
getting
great.
close now. I'm getting close
Yeah.
now. I meet people like you, and I meet because the thing about the experience economy is because right now it's still emerging, there is a bit of an us against the world feeling of the people that
Hmm.
get it. And there's frustration, as you were exhibiting, with people who don't get it.
Hmm.
And I feel we worry too much about those people who don't get
Hmm.
it, as opposed to focusing on the people that do and making that group, that Camelot moment bigger, or the
Hmm.
chances of that moment bigger,
Yeah.
because we're going to do it. We're
Hmm.
going to make this work. And so I think I'm close now, but hey, you can't, it happens or it doesn't.
Yeah. Just stay open to it, right?
Exactly.
Um, okay, Alan, last thing is let's tell people where they can find out more. So they can find you on LinkedIn.
Yep.
It's xlainstitute.com, correct?
No, it's XLA.institute. That's
XLA.institute
I
for
want
the
people to
website.
become a member, and I want people
Yes.
to contribute, and I want people to tell me when I'm full of shit, and I want people to tell me what we can do next. And everybody is welcome, but you have to believe. You have to believe in one thing, that this is not about making more money. It's about improving the experience for your employees, your customers, your suppliers, and any audience that you really are passionate about.
Hmm. Absolutely. You have an event coming up later this year in the US. Is that accurate?
Yes, October 9th, we are
Okay.
doing it in 30 Rock.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, so even that, we wanted to have the right, but we didn't want to go to Orlando or Las
Hmm.
Vegas. And we're not that big anyway. It's going to be limited. We're probably not going to be able to take more than 100 people. So, you want to be there. You really want to be there. Don't turn up because you feel you have to. Turn up
Hmm.
because you want to contribute. So October 9th.
Excellent. Okay. We'll put the links in the show notes. Thank you so, so, so much for coming
Thank
and
you.
spending some time with me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for putting up with me.
Of course. You can find more by visiting the home of the Unscripted podcast at futureoffieldservice.com. The podcast is published in partnership with IFS. You can learn more at ifs.com. As always, thank you for listening.